think about sending Winnie out into the world again. He has to assess her level of training.
Sorry, y'all, I'm not quite ready, but I felt bad because I was running late, so I went and took Kimber for a walk, and I was running behind because I had a lot of things that I had to do this afternoon, so I always need to make sure that I get my dog for a walk because he's a big dog, and if I don't, he'll end up getting, restless and whatnot. So I have to make sure that I get him out. I'm going to turn on some more lights. I normally read in my room, but tonight we're going to sit in the living room and read because both of my kids are gone, and I try to reduce the risk of them accidentally being shown online. Even though they're, bordering adults, I still want to respect their privacy and make sure that I don't show them on camera. And the only way to prevent that when I'm on live is, to be in my room so they're not, in the view of the camera. But my daughter went to a football game this evening, and my son is at work, so we are good on that. And I can sit out here in the living room, and we can all hang out together and start reading this book again. I have to say that I am a fan of how this book is coming together. No, I don't agree with all the trauma and stuff that she's been through. That's horrible. I do appreciate how they've, put the story together. And even though she has like a really hard story to tell, they didn't make her seem like the ultimate victim. They really embraced her as, a survivor, somebody who has spent all this time in a traumatic situation, but she is not defined by the things that she went through. And I really appreciate that they're trying to, trying to showcase that you're not defined by the things that happen to you. Because I feel like in somebody else's book and somebody else's life, they have definitely portrayed like everything in her life is about this trauma and the thing that she went through. And it kind of doesn't give you any freedom to be a different person. You either have to admit defeat and that you're always going to be looked at as a victim, or you have to do something to overcome those things that you went through. And unfortunately, as it relates to Gypsy Rose, she hasn't done any of those things to like be a different person. So she is in this victim mindset, and she really has chosen to kind of stay there because no matter how much and no matter what happens, she continues to re-victimize herself through all the situations that she's been through. So again, that's why I'm really appreciating this book, because they're not making her like this ultimate victim. I hope everyone had a good day. Y'all, I can't even believe it's February, like supposed to be February. I think that our government has altered time. I think our government has altered climate control. And I think our government has definitely altered like the months and the days, because for it to be almost 80 degrees outside in February in North Carolina, that is unheard of. like unheard of for it to be this hot outside. I've got my robe on because I have the AC on. Like, I turned the AC on last week because it was so freaking hot. And you know what's crazy is that it snowed literally 2 weeks before, and now it's super hot, which is wild. So I know I might sound a little, but I think our government is definitely messing with time, like physical time, like, it not being 7:15 right now. I think it's a different time. And I also think that they are messing with the months, the calendar, and the years. I think that our government has stolen a lot of time from us. But that's on another topic. Because I could go on and on about that. Please don't think I'm crazy. All right, so we are on chapter 31. Let me just stop for a second. I think that we can get through the rest of part 4. Hey, Holly, how are you? I think that we can get through the rest of part 4 this evening because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 chapters. And then we will start part 5 on tomorrow. Hey, Shorty, give me just 1 second though, because we were talking about watching the movie, and it looks like hold on, buddy. It looks like the movie has already come out. You ready to read? Okay. It looks like I will have to pay for this movie, but we can watch it. It's not expensive. It's only $5 on Prime Video. So I think if you guys want to, we can watch this on Sunday. It says that you can get it through Lifetime, but when I click on it, it says that you have to have like a login and you have to sign in with your TV provider. And I don't have like cable television, so I don't think that I'd be able to watch it. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think if I don't have a Lifetime, like if I don't have a cable provider that has Lifetime, then that means that I can't watch it. Oh, hold on. So it says Hulu, but when I go to log into my Hulu account, it says that I don't have access to Lifetime. I tried to do this before and I don't have access to Lifetime because I guess you have to subscribe to live TV for Lifetime, and it's not available in my area. So I think that we'll probably just have to watch it on Prime Video, which for $5, I don't mind paying $5 for us to sit down and watch the movie. Okay, buddy, come lay down. We're not playing anymore. Come on, come lay down. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy. The movie is called Mormon Mom Gone Wrong, the Ruby Franke story. So basically it's the story about Sherry's mother, and I guess it's told in the lens of the media, maybe. I'm not really sure whose lens they're telling this story by. I don't know if they took her story and made it into a movie. I don't know, but I do think that it would be interesting to watch as a movie to see if they add, different details than what we're reading in the book. Okay, so chapter 31, Poisoned Well. One day, as Derek and I sat in his office, the curtains drawn, I tried meekly to confront him and address our situation. It took all the courage I had. I don't know if this is right, Derek, I said slowly, my heart racing. I shouldn't be here, right? Not like this. What if someone finds out? It would be terrible for everyone. He leaned back in his leather chair, cool as a cucumber. Shari, you worry far too much. In God's eyes, we're not doing anything wrong, and that's all that matters. I fidgeted with the hem of my skirt, my stomach twisting in knots. But how can you be so sure? Shari, I'm an elder in the Melchizedek priesthood. I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm responsible for the spiritual and temporal well-being of the men in my quorum. Do you really think I would do anything to jeopardize my calling? It was true. He was a man of God, a worthy member. Suddenly, I felt very ill. Oh, honey, you're so pale, he said, reaching out to pat my hand. Stop with those bad thoughts. It's your anxiety disorder making you overthink things. He kept pushing, kept taking things further and further over the line. I didn't have those kinds of feelings for him. I wasn't attracted to him, and I didn't want him like that. But I was too addicted to the scraps of validation he gave me, the morsels of support he tossed my way when it came to my family. He was the only one who knew how messed up it all was. The only one telling me I wasn't crazy, wasn't making it up all up in my head. I needed that lifeline, that hint of warmth in a world that felt hard and unforgiving. But it was confusing, crazy making. My rational mind knew that what I was doing was wrong, while my traumatized mind convinced me to stay quiet and compliant. I don't know why I thought Ruby could possibly help. But one day, in a moment of desperation, I mustered up the courage to text her. I think on a deep and primal level, I just needed my mother, and it came out as a plea for her attention. I wanted her to understand that I still needed her, so I blurted out my feelings. Mom, I feel like you don't care about me, I wrote. You never answer the phone when I call, but I know you're always talking to Jody. I feel ignored. I feel like you don't love me. I hit send and immediately felt like I had signed my own death warrant. What have I done? I thought, my stomach twisting in knots as I anticipated Ruby's response. She never responded kindly to demands for affection. Affection had to be earned, and it was always on her terms. She took her time getting back to me, and it was torture. For 24 hours, I lay in bed, my body paralyzed, every ping of my phone sending jolts of fear through my veins. The next day, Ruby decided to grace me with a response. I sense a lot of aggression in your text, a lot of resentment. I'm going to invite you to talk to me. Hold on. I'm going to invite you to invite me to talk about this with you in person. That was weird. So just let me back up again. She says, I'm going to invite you to invite me to talk about this with you in person. So I did. I invited her to talk about it in person, and she accepted my invitation, telling me to meet her and Kevin for dinner at a local restaurant. I feel like as a daughter, if your daughter is telling you that she feels like you don't care about her, she shouldn't have to invite you to have a conversation. Like, you should just want to have a conversation with your child to let her know that you do in fact care about her. Like, she shouldn't have had to reach out to her mother to ask her to come down and talk. I don't know. I feel weird about that. I sat there pushing my French fries around my plate. Ruby taking the reins of the conversation as usual. You were very selfish in writing this text to me, she said, shaking her head. I sighed and shrank further into myself, not saying anything. Ruby fixed me with a penetrating stare. What was your motive in sending me that, Sherry? I shifted in my seat, anger suddenly flaring in my chest. Honestly, I was hoping you might actually hear me for once. And what is it that you think I'm not hearing? This dinner was supposed to be about me feeling like I don't matter, like my feelings don't matter. Ruby glared at me. Sherry, I need you to really examine your motives because it feels to me like you're hiding something. And I was, but I couldn't tell her about Derek, could I? I just needed to hear somehow that she cared about me, but that wasn't in the cards. By the time the dessert arrived, I was broken, sobbing into my chocolate cake, apologizing for being selfish enough to put them through this whole ordeal. Thank you for allowing me to mirror truth to you, Sherry, Ruby said, patting my hand as the server dropped off the check. And since you're adult now, we'd like to invite you to pay for dinner. Meaning, her mom wanted her to pay for the dinner. I nodded meekly and pulled out my wallet, watching an $80 disappear from my account faster than my will to live. 4 days after that disastrous dinner, I lay in bed, catatonic. Every thought that popped into my head was tinged with paranoia and self-doubt. Is this me? Is this Jody? Is this God? Is this just my anxiety talking? I found myself truly questioning my own sanity, wondering what was real and what wasn't. I couldn't even bring myself to go to class. My body was reacting with physical symptoms that I couldn't ignore. What would happen if I had actually stood up to my mother? I wondered, my stomach churning with fear at the thought. But I knew the answer. Ruby had the power to turn my siblings against me, to cut me off from the only people in the world who also understood the insanity of our upbringing. And she would pull that trigger without a second thought. What would my life look like without my family? I wondered, my heart aching at the thought. Immediately, I knew that I would rather endure this soul-crushing depression for the rest of my life than risk losing them completely. And through it all, there was Derek whispering in my ear, I see how messed up your parents are. He would say, I see how wrong this is. Let me help you. He had my number the first time we ever met. He knew I'd been trained to fall in line, to never make waves. And because I had let him get close, because I had spilled my guts to him about the mind games and power trips that passed for love in my family, he knew just which buttons to push. My body, my space, my very being, none of it was really mine. So when Derek started pawing at me, started treating me like his personal property, I went away in my head. I fell back on that big fake smile that had gotten me through so much already. What irony. While all this was happening, I was studying abuse of power in my college classes, learning about the dynamics of coercion, about the ways in which abusers groom and manipulate their victims. But even as I intellectualized these concepts, even as I wrote papers and participated in discussions about the insidious nature of abuse, I was unable to apply that knowledge to my own brain. My brain wouldn't let me go there. But deep down, I think I knew what Derek was. He was just another one of them, just like Ruby and Jody. He was another one of those poisonous adults in my life, sucking the very marrow from my bones. Chapter 32, Seeds of Healing. It was one of those picture-perfect early summer days, the kind that feels like a slap in the face when your life is falling apart. Sherry, I think you need therapy, said my bishop, watching me stare listlessly into space. Oh, sure, I said. I've done it before. I liked it, but Ruby won't let me. I'm on the family health insurance, and she won't allow it. Well, the church can take care of that, he said, We'll cover whatever you need, no questions asked. True to his word, the church stepped up and covered the cost of my therapy and medication without ever involving my family. That was so very nice of the church to do that for her. Like, very, very nice. It was a weight off my shoulders. I settled into a plush armchair in a new therapist's office, the leather cool against my skin. My new therapist's name was Dana, and I liked her so far. So, Sherry, Dana began, her voice gentle, what are your hopes for therapy? Do you have any specific concerns? I picked at a loose thread on the couch cushion, avoiding her gaze. Well, things at home, they're not great. I willed myself to open up more, remembering how guarded I had been with Dr. Winters. Dana leaned forward, nodding. What do you mean, Sherry? What's been going on? I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. It's my mom. She's very intense, controlling, and I don't think she likes me very much. Dana nodded, her pen poised over her notepad. Can you give me an example of a time your mother has made you feel that way? I huffed at a laugh, shaking my head. Where do I even start? The words came tumbling out like a flood. I couldn't stop. I told her about the piano, about being pulled out of school, about being forced to be on camera all the time, even if I felt sick and tired. I told her about Jody moving in and my father shutting down. I told her how our house just didn't feel like a home anymore. Dana's eyes softened and she set down her pen. Wow, that sounds very tough, Sherry. It's a lot for anyone to handle. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes and I blinked them away. I don't know how much more I can take. Sherry, I want you to know that what your mother is doing, the way she's treating you and your siblings, it's not okay. It's emotional abuse. Abuse? I imagine Ruby laughing at us if she were here. Don't be so dramatic, Sherry. But this was Dana saying it, a real doctor. And I knew she was right. I'd known for a long time. Thank you, I whispered. She always made me feel like I was just being too sensitive, too selfish. My last therapist thought I was making everything up. Dana raised her eyebrow. Did you tell your mother that? I nodded. You're not weak, Sherry, and that the fact that you're here and that you're seeking help and support, that's a testament to your strength. It felt like I was waking up from a long, hazy dream. The fog was lifting, and in its place was a blinding, brilliant truth. It wasn't me. It never had been. The dysfunction, the chaos, it was all Ruby. It always had been. In the safety of Dana's office, surrounded by the soft light and the comforting scent of chamomile tea, I found myself teetering on the edge of honesty. A part of me longed to unburden myself, to lay bare the complexities of my relationship with Derek, but I couldn't yet. When Dana gently probed about my personal life, asking if I was involved with anyone, I felt the familiar tightening in my chest. My palms grew clammy, and I shifted uneasily in the plush armchair that suddenly felt too confining. Well, I began, my voice a whisper, there is this one friend. He's older than me, but it's not like that. He's more of a father figure, really. The words felt hollow as they left my lips, a half-truth that didn't begin to capture the complexity of my feelings for Derek. Dana cocked her head, her keen eyes searching for my face. I could almost see the gears turning in her mind, picking up on the subtle cues I was inadvertently giving away. A father figure, she echoed, her eyebrows arching slightly. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? I forced a smile, willing my features to remain neutral. There's not much to tell, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. He's just someone that I can talk to, someone who understands what I'm going through with my family. As I spoke, I realized how true those words were, even if they didn't tell the whole story. I could sense Dana's skepticism, the unspoken questions hanging in the air between us. But to her credit, she didn't push. Instead, she steered our conversation back to familiar territory, strategies for coping with my mother's behavior and the ongoing family drama. As the sessions wound down and I prepared to leave the sanctuary of Dana's office, I felt a mixture of guilt and relief. Relief that I had managed to keep my secret, and guilt that I wasn't being entirely honest with the one person who was actually trying to help me. But I wasn't ready to examine it too closely, to hold it up to the harsh light of therapy, to understand why this was happening to me. Maybe one day I would, I just wasn't sure when. Chapter 33, Puppets and Puppeteers. In June 2022, between my freshman and sophomore year, the Frankies gathered for our annual photo shoot, the last time the 8 of us would ever be in the same place again as a family. When we arrived at the small clearing overlooking the valley, the scene was breathtaking. Wildflowers dotted the hillside in a riot of color. The light was golden and buttery, the kind of light photographers dream about. It should have been perfect. Ruby's eyes were darting around the clearing, her gaze sharp and assessing. When they landed on Dwight, our 3-year-old Cavapoo, her lip curled with distaste. He was sitting at Kevin's feet, his tongue lolling happily, his tail thumping against the ground in a steady rhythm, oblivious to the crackle of unspoken anger in the air. I don't want him in any pictures, Ruby said. He's not part of the family. He's a dog. I felt a hot rush of anger. Dwight was a part of our family. He was a constant source of love and comfort in a household sorely lacking in both. How could she say he didn't belong? That's so rude. But the kids pushed back. We all wanted Dwight there. Maybe it was the heat or the pressure of the photographer's curious gaze, or maybe some small part of her recognized the need to preserve at least the illusion of unity. But Ruby relented. Dwight would make the cut. We arranged ourselves for the camera as if the way we always had. Dwight nestled in the center of our strained, uncomfortable poses. As the camera clicked and whirred, I felt detached, like I was watching the scene unfold from outside my own body. Ruby's smile was fixed and brittle, her eyes hard. Kevin's expression was distant and closed off, and the rest of us wore expressions painted on like masks. The smiles were too wide, the eyes too bright. When the photographer tried to coax Ruby and Kevin into a kiss, Ruby flat out refused and turned away from him as though he were a stranger. The result was the most awkward family photos in history of family photos. No amount of Photoshop could ever fix that. Even Dwight looked a little off, like he could sense the tension radiating from us in waves. He knew a sinking ship when he saw one. In the car ride home, I caught Chad's eye in the rearview mirror. I think we both sensed the ground was about to shift beneath our feet, the carefully constructed edifice of our family life about to come crashing down around us. Shortly after the shoot, Kevin and Ruby prepared for our annual summer trip to the Wasatch Mountains, an hour's drive away. This getaway was supposed to be a family bonding experience, but this year they decided to leave Chad and the 2 youngest kids behind, deeming them too selfish to come along, because nothing says family bonding like excluding half of the family. They had invited me, but I declined due to classes. Kevin then texted our family group chat, including me, Ruby, and Chad, asking if I would watch the little ones while they were gone. I agreed without hesitation, but asked if he could cover my gas money, since I'd be driving back and forth from campus daily on a tight budget, and Kevin agreed. While they were up in the mountains, Kevin invited Chad and me to visit for a day. I thought it was a nice gesture. Yes, we'd love to join, I texted back. By the way, are you guys still willing to help us with gas? Kevin's response was swift and cold. No, Sherry, you have plenty of money for gas, and we have offered to purchase your lunch. If somebody invites you to join them at an event, it's brazen and impolite to ask them to pay for your gas. The abrupt shift in his tone left me stunned. One moment I was a responsible adult entrusted with childcare. The next I was an ungrateful child being scolded for my brazen behavior. I was confused. Okay, I wrote. It's just when you asked me a few months ago to stay with the kids, you agreed to pay for my gas. Sherry, I hope you can see the difference between these two requests. They are very different. Please do not make money your God. Obsessing over and pursuing money will destroy every beautiful relationship you have for your life. That's true for everybody. Huh? Kevin never talked to me like this before, but it sounded exactly like something Ruby would say. It had her fingerprints all over it, her signature blend of holier than thou rhetoric and connection style criticism. But coming from my dad, it felt like a knife to the heart. Maybe this is just a momentary lapse, I thought, even as the doubts swirled in my mind, because the alternative, the idea that my father was truly lost to me, that the person I loved had been completely erased and rewritten in Ruby's image, was too devastating to contemplate. I tried to diffuse the situation. Very good advice. I've been trying to keep a budget, so that is something I'm aware of. But I'm happy to spend the gas money in order to spend time with my siblings and build family relationships. Then Ruby chimed in. Sherry, I'm deeply concerned for you. Can you see that what your dad offered you was not advice? He was giving you feedback on your presentation. We offer it because we love you. Rather than sidestep the feedback, it would be better for you to thoughtfully consider it and get curious if you don't see it. Okay, I responded, not knowing really what else to say. My fingers hovered over my phone. I wanted to write something that could break through and reach the dad I once knew, but after several agonizing minutes, I had nothing. Who are you, Kevin? And what have you done with my father? Kevin had about as much autonomy as a wet noodle in a hurricane. His every thought and action was dictated by the whims of his unhinged masters, Ruby and Jody. The groundwork had been laid long ago, the seeds of doubt and obedience sown deep, as it had been with me. The only difference was I'd gotten out. Years of subservience to Ruby had left Kevin's psyche weakened, and now he was easy prey, low-hanging fruit. With meticulous precision, Jody had finished the job, dismantling the last remnants of Kevin's independence, stripping away layer after layer until nothing remained but a pliant puppet awaiting her command. With all her pieces in place, Jody was poised to make her final move, to eliminate Kevin completely. Facsimile father. As a high-ranking member of Connections, Kevin was duty-bound to make his weekly confessions to Jody, each call a ruthless dissection of his psyche, picking apart the carcass of what remained of his self-worth. And just like my sessions with Jody had been, one innocent incident from my childhood had become a major weapon in Jody's arsenal. I was 5 years old, and Ruby had made chicken Alfredo for dinner. I had developed an intense hatred for chicken Alfredo and spent the entire meal hiding under the kitchen table, refusing to take a single bite. At the end of dinner, Kevin snuck me a bowl of ice cream. He slid it right under the table, like we were secret agents on a covert mission. It was such a small thing, but it meant the world to me. My dad, my hero, making sure I didn't go to bed on an empty stomach. That memory had always made me smile until he told Jody about it. Now that bowl of ice cream was one of many exhibits in the case against Kevin's character. Do you see how you were being entitled in that moment? She told Kevin, giving her ice cream, undermining Ruby's authority as a mother. Alongside this, there was the damning evidence of his lustfulness in noticing an attractive woman at the gym, not even talking to her, mind you, just noticing, and the unforgivable crime of speaking to a female coworker. That long ago act of kindness was now proof of his extreme distortion. Jody saw sex everywhere, in every interaction, every glance, every fleeting thought. In her mind, the world was a cesspool of lust and distortion, a rolling sea of desire, a 24th century Sodom and Gomorrah, with only her twisted version of truth offering any salvation. A part of me pitied her, a repressed, self-loathing, deeply damaged woman trapped in an environment in which she felt compelled to conceal her true nature, surrounded by women she couldn't have, women who were married to men she resented. In her mind, there was only one path to justice: crush the sperm donors and liberate the females. In the twisted matriarchy Jody had orchestrated, Kevin's innermost thoughts were a weapon to be wielded against him. With ruthless precision, Jody would extract each secret shame, each hidden doubt, and turn it back upon him in service of her one true goal: to claim Ruby as her own, knowing full well that Kevin's shattered spirit no longer had the strength to fight back. The accusations took on, hold on. Give me 1 second. Okay. My daughter is at the high school game, so it was showing me that I guess she used my car. I don't know. In the twisted matriarchy, I already read that. Knowing full well that Kevin's shattered spirit no longer had the strength to fight back. The accusations took an even darker turn when Jody twisted the happiness he felt in hugging his daughters into something sinister and perverse. She filled his mind with doubts and self-loathing, making him second-guess every interaction, even display of affection. Can you see how messed up it was when you gave your girls those hugs? You enjoyed it, didn't you? Jody would ask. That's fucking weird. I mean, of course you're going to enjoy a hug with your child. They're your child. I don't think that he was hugging his children in inappropriate ways. I can only imagine the horror and disgust that filled Kevin's mind. The shame, the fear, the sickening idea that he might not be a safe person for his own children to even be around. Now, that's a crazy thought. It was all nonsense, of course, but these kinds of sexual accusations were Jody's go-to tactics, her nuclear option in the game of psychological warfare. She had used it time and time again to tear families apart, planting seeds of doubts and spinning false narratives of incestuous thoughts, infidelity, or corn addiction. And once the accusations were made, the supposed perpetrator was as good as done for. It was only a matter of time before they'd be invited to leave. Kimber, quiet. The Haymans had been a constant in my life since high school. When Mr. Heyman, my teacher, had become the first adult I felt safe confiding in about Ruby's behavior, as that summer of 2022 unfolded, Mr. Heyman and his wife realized just how dysfunctional things had become at home. One day, Miss Heyman pressed a shiny new key into my palm. "Sherry, sweetie," she said, her eyes filled with warmth and concern, "you're always welcome here. Our home is your home." That's why one muggy midsummer evening in July 2022, I found myself driving to their house. I had chosen to stay at college during the summer break, reluctant to return home. But on this particular night, I couldn't face the solitude of my dorm room either. Almost without conscious thought, I knew where I wanted to be. The Haymans didn't know my parents too well. They had briefly taken one of Jody's classes when I was a freshman in college, but quickly dismissed connections as dumb and dropped out after only a few weeks. Ironically, this fleeting exposure proved invaluable, giving them just enough insight to understand the world I had been trapped in without being pulled into its orbit. Their daughter, who was close to my age, had become like a sister to me. We'd spend hours watching old movies, binging on Little House on the Prairie and black and white Deanna Durbin musicals from the 1940s. Their house, always filled with laughter and warmth, had become my safe haven, a place where I could breathe freely and just be myself. I walked up to the Haymans' front door, let myself in, only to realize that nobody was home, just their dogs. Right. They mentioned something about going to a play, I reminded myself. I plopped down on the Haymans' cozy living room couch, intending to zone out in front of the TV for a while. Just as I reached for the remote, my phone buzzed. Kevin's name flashing across the screen. Hey, I answered. Are you alone? He asked. Yeah, why? I replied, unceased creeping up my spine. Your mom and I need to talk to you, he said. I heard the faint echo that told me I was on speakerphone, though Ruby remained silent. My mind raced, immediately jumping to the worst case scenarios. Have they found out about Derek? Sherry, I don't know how to say this. I gripped the phone even tighter, my palm sweating. Just say it, Dad, please. Your mom has invited me to leave the family home so I can work on myself, he said, his voice cracking. Once I'm better, I'll come back and we can be a happy family again. I'll be gone for at least a year. The words hit me like a sucker punch. A year? Tears streamed down my face as I choked out, You're moving out of the house and leaving the kids? Kevin sighed heavily. Yes, I'm leaving and taking Chad with me. Chad is also selfish, and I guess selfish people belong together. I don't want to I don't want you to end up like me, Sherry, he continued. Maybe this can be a learning experience for you. Learning experience? Is he serious right now? I thought, my mind reeling. Kevin then dropped another bombshell. He wouldn't be communicating with the other kids, only me. None of this made any sense. How are you feeling about all this, Sherry? He asked, his voice flat. Confused, I said. Really, really confused. I understand, but this isn't the end of our family. It's the beginning. The beginning? The word echoed in my mind, hollow and meaningless. When the Haymans family finally returned home, they found me curled up in a fetal position on the couch, my body racked with sobs that seemed to come from a place deep within me. They didn't ask questions, just helped me to get to the guest bedroom and told me that I was safe. The next morning, I woke up to the buzz of my phone, this time a lengthy text from Kevin. Sherry, things have changed, and Chad and I are going to ask that you don't contact either of us until we're ready and we reach out to you. Please don't contact me. Don't be selfish about this and don't hold resentment for this. Use this time to get close to your mom and your siblings. I read the message once, twice, three times, each word cutting deeper than the last. The urge to hurl my phone against the wall was almost overwhelming. Don't be selfish. Don't hold resentment. He was cutting me off with this poor excuse for a goodbye. How could he expect me to just accept this without any questions, without any explanations? The Haymans' guest room became my cocoon. Hours stretched into days as I lay there, my mind a labyrinth of unanswered questions and half formed theories. But there was no logic to be found, no hidden meaning to uncover. All I knew was that this was Jody's doing. This is a small excerpt from her journal. I went to counseling today and talked it through. I'm so angry with my dad for not sticking up for himself and for abandoning his family. And I am furious at Mom and Jody for ruining our family. I feel like a part of me has DIED and will never get it back. I don't know how I'll ever recover or forgive them. I don't know how to help my siblings. I don't even know how to help myself. A week passed in the haze of grief and confusion before Ruby finally reached out. Her message popped up on my phone. How are you doing with all of this? I was surprised she contacted me at all, given the state of our relationship. Part of me was relieved she hadn't reached out earlier. I needed time to process. Still, her belated concern felt hollow. I'm having a really hard time. I'm really sad. Her response was as comforting as a bucket of ice water. Yes, this has been really hard. I hope that all of us will use this as an opportunity to become humbler, especially you. Humbler? Was she serious? I couldn't bring myself to dignify that with a response. I tossed my phone aside, burying my face in a pillow and sobbing until my throat was raw. A few days later, Ruby suggested we meet for lunch to discuss the situation. What's there to discuss? I thought bitterly. You've kicked Dad out because you're obsessed with Jody. Now the rest of us are left to pick up the pieces. Mustering every ounce of courage I possess, I declined her invitation. How come you don't want to meet with me? She wrote. This has been hard. This has been a hard time for me. Text is what I'm available to do right now. My concern is texting leaves a lot open to misinterpretation. I left it there, unable to engage further. As days turned into weeks, I found myself reflecting on Kevin's role in all this. He was far from perfect. Over the years, he'd made his share of mistakes, enabling Ruby's toxic behavior and standing idly by as she steamrolled over everyone. He was her faithful servant, catering to her every whim, no matter how unreasonable. But Kevin was never a selfish man. In fact, his greatest weakness was his selflessness. He gave and gave until there was nothing left. Now he had gone willingly into exile, cutting off all contact with us, his children, to please his wife and to protect us from the vile monster Jody led him to believe he was. He'd said it would be temporary, a year to focus on personal growth before returning to his family. But I knew Ruby would never welcome him back, no matter how much time had passed. This was a one-way ticket. This was permanent. To this day, it's a miracle to me that he survived the misery of his exile and didn't end it all. A chilling thought had crossed my mind since then. Maybe that's what Jody and Ruby wanted. Maybe they were hoping he'd just disappear forever. Chapter 35, Care Package. As summer faded into fall, I found myself facing a new chapter of my life. Sophomore year of college. The relative safety of dorm life was behind me now, replaced by the daunting prospect of off-campus living. I moved into a cramped apartment with two girls, fellow students whom I'd met on campus. The three of us squeezed into two bedrooms like sardines in a tin. The stress of the move, compounded by the ongoing family drama, left me feeling raw and vulnerable. But nothing could have prepared me for the shock that awaited me in our new bedroom. What I had initially mistaken for sloppy spackling on the walls turned out to be black mold, creeping across the surfaces like some alien invasion, sending my anxiety into overdrive. Panic rising in my chest, I did the unthinkable. I called Ruby. As the phone rang, I realized how desperate I must be to turn to her for help. Mom, I blurted out, my voice crackling. I can't live here. I'm going to DIE from black mold. The words tumbled out of my mouth in a rush, part plea for help, part childish exaggeration born of fear and stress. I don't know what I expected. Comfort, perhaps, maybe even an offer to come and help me sort this mess out. But what I got was Pure Ruby. No sympathy, just a clinical list of cleaning tips delivered in her matter-of-fact tone. Now you're 18, she concluded, her voice devoid of any maternal warmth. It's time for you to take care of yourself. I tried as best I could to do just that, alongside my two roomies, each of us battling our own demons in our cramped, moldy apartment. One was a 26-year-old down in the dumps that she was still stuck on campus she'd long ago outgrown. The other was a walking, talking pillar of faith, living her LDS principles with such an upbeat, unyielding intensity that even I, no stranger to conservative values, was impressed by the way she'd lunge for the remote and hit fast forward during PG kissing scenes in movies. We were a stressed out little sisterhood, all very different from one another, but I found great comfort in not being alone, an odd sort of solace in these young women's company. I shared fragments of my stories with them. They knew that I wasn't speaking with Ruby, for instance, but the full extent of my family drama remained locked away, too heavy to share. They didn't know about the unanswered texts I sent to my father, each one a desperate plea for some sign that he still cared, that I wasn't DEAD to him. Derek, that was a secret I held close. I could already imagine their eyes widening, lips pursing in poorly concealed disapproval if they knew. Telling them, or anyone for that matter, would invite judgment I wasn't prepared to face. Oh, sorry. I couldn't even find the words to explain to my roommate what had happened with Chad. I discovered through some covert detective work involving sympathetic neighbors wasn't living with Kevin as I'd been told. Instead, he was out on his own playing house with a bunch of roommates in an apartment complex in Provo, practically around the corner from where I was living. When I found out, my brain nearly short-circuited. An urgent need to find him, to talk to him, consumed me. If he was living alone, did that mean he was estranged from Ruby and Kevin too? And most importantly, was he okay? I racked my brain trying to think of anyone who might have the inside scoop on Chad's actual address. And I remembered that one of our neighbors was a big shot landlord in Provo, and something told me he might have helped Chad get his apartment. I fired off a message to him. Do you happen to know where Chad's living? I wrote. If so, can you please tell me? It's urgent. His reply was frustratingly tight-lipped. I can confirm that he is living in one of my properties, he wrote, his tone maddeningly neutral. But I'm afraid I can't give you the specific apartment number. Confidentiality agreements, you understand. Then, out of the blue, I got a text message from an unknown number. Building 6, apartment 38. To this day, I have no idea who sent that message. I ransacked my kitchen, stuffing a bag with Chad's favorite comfort food, Doritos, Oreos, and those bizarre cheese crackers he'd devour by the fistful. Nestled among the snacks, I tuckered a letter pouring out my heart, my love for him, my fears about our family implosion, and my unwavering promise to stand by him as both big sister and friend. With this lifeline packed, I jumped in my car and raced to his apartment. I timed my visit for when I thought he'd be out, hoping to leave the care package and letter without ambushing him. The plan was to give him space to process everything in his own terms. But when I knocked on the door of apartment 38, one of Chad's roommates opened the door, revealing my brother in the kitchen behind him. My heart leaped at the sight of his familial face. The same smile that had brightened so many of my days, the eyes that had twinkled with mischief during countless shared jokes. Our eyes locked, his wide with surprise, as he slowly approached the threshold. Shari, he said, his voice low, what are you doing here? How did you find me? I swallowed hard, suddenly feeling like an intruder. Can we talk, please? I said, my voice shaking slightly. For a moment, I thought he was going to slam the door in my face to tell me to get lost. Instead, he stepped into the hallway and gazed at me warily. I miss you, Chad, I said, tears brimming. What's in the bag? He asked, voice flat. Snacks, I chirped, false cheer straining in my voice. You know, for the bottomless pit you call your stomach. Here. He shook his head, declining the bag. All good, Sherry. So why are you here? I could feel the tension radiating from him. Suspicion and anger simmered just beneath the surface of his carefully controlled exterior. What lies had they used to turn him against me? I wondered, my heart clenching painfully in my chest. I took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts. Then the words I'd been holding back for so long came pouring out. I'm here because our family is falling apart, because our mother is abusive. Chad's eyes widened, a flicker of something, recognition, denial, passing across his face. Sherry, come on. I pressed on, desperate to make him understand. Dad leaving, the way they're isolating him, isolating us. You have to know deep down that something is very wrong here. Chad crossed his arms over his chest, his jaw clenched tight. The gesture was so familiar, so reminiscent of our mother that it made my heart ache. There's nothing wrong except that some of us need to work on our responsibilities. I reached out, my hand hovering itches from his arm. Chad, please, just hear me out. He jerked away from my touch as if I burned, his eyes flashing with a mixture of anger and something that looked suspiciously like fear. I'm trying to protect you, I whispered. Can't you see? Mom and Jody are dangerous. Chad laughed. Protection? I'm doing fine. I'm working 2 jobs. I'm paying my bills. His eyes raked over me, critical and cold. You should worry about yourself. Why are you so loyal to her after everything she's done to you? She's our mother, Sherry. I opened my mouth to respond, but Jad held up a hand and cut me off. You should leave, he said, his voice low and final. And with that, he turned and disappeared back into the apartment, slamming the door behind him. I stood there, staring at the closed door, clutching the care package I'd brought, trying to gather my thoughts. I felt so drained, and the hope I'd felt just hours ago had vanished. Despite my joy at seeing Chad, the coldness in his eyes was devastating. It was painfully clear that my entire family had turned against me. I wanted to scream, to pound on the door until my fist bled, to make him listen. My chest tightened, each breath a struggle against the growing knot of panic. I had to get out of there. I had to lay down. As I was getting back to my apartment, my phone buzzed. A long message from Ruby. Chad must have told her I'd tracked him down. She twisted my actions, painting my attempts to protect Chad as a malicious attack. The fact that I'd call her abusive seemed to struck a nerve. This is the message that Ruby sent to Sherry, her daughter. Sherry, you have been deceiving me for quite some time. This makes sense now why you didn't want to talk to me. You couldn't handle the duplicity. It's clear to me that you are not interested in being a part of our family, and you have chosen to disconnect by sneaking around, attempting to harm other members of our family. I feel great grief and loss at your choices. I will honor your agency of disconnect. Disconnection means that you are not interested in being around me and the family. You don't get to disconnect emotionally and tell stories about your mother and then get the perks of familial and financial connection that I provide. It has come to my attention that you called me abusive. Wow, Sherry. That word is heavily loaded with intimidation. It is hurtful you would use that word knowing the pain that this lie has caused. This is my way of being very loving and inviting you to see the reality you are in. You don't get to use me or any members of the family. When you are willing to humble yourself and acknowledge your aggression and deception, I am open to talking to you. I will keep you in my prayers. You appear to be a very lost soul. You don't even know who the enemy is. Your arrogance has kept you from heeding my warnings. Love, Ruby. I hurled my phone onto the bed, its screen still glowing with Ruby's words. My hands trembled as I yanked open drawers, grabbing fistfuls of clothes and shoving them into an overnight bag. I couldn't be here anymore. Knowing Chad was so close and yet so far away, and Ruby, her words echoed in my head, dripping with a cruelty that seemed to have deepened, if that were even possible. As I slung the bag over my shoulder, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. The woman staring back looked lost, hollowed out. I barely recognized her. With a shaky breath, I tore my eyes away. Hey, I'm staying with a friend for a bit, I called out to my roommates. The door slammed behind me before they could even ask why. It seemed like she just continued to try to show everybody what was going on. And often what happens when you're in narcissistic relationships like this, often what happens is you become the scapegoat because the family, yes, that's what I'm reading, Mandy, because the family sees you as the black sheep for calling out the abuse and the toxic behavior. So instead of acknowledging what is going on in the family and doing self-reflection to change the dynamics in the toxic household, they blamed her for highlighting the abuse and the toxicity as if she was the one that was causing all the problems. She wasn't the one who was causing all the problems. She was trying to open everyone's eyes to see the toxicity in the family so that they could all get help. But usually it's the black sheep of the family, the one that sees the toxicity, that ends up kind of going no contact because nobody listens to them and they don't want to live in the toxic dynamic anymore. So the only way to really get away from that is to go no contact, because everyone has turned against the person that is trying to call out the abuse. Chapter 36, fun. Let me see. I said we were going to get through part 5, so let me see. Okay, we've got 2 more chapters before we get to part 5, and then I'm going to end it for the night. And if you are just signing on, we are going to be watching the movie about Ruby Franke on Sunday. I'm going to be streaming it while watching live. So Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, if you want to see the movie, come back. We're going to watch it together. Get your popcorn. We're going to watch it. We're going to pause. We're going to have discussion. It's going to be a highlight of, all things narcissistic so that we can truly understand the dynamics of what was going on in the family. Because I'm not sure whose perspective they're telling this story from. If it's a movie based on Sherry's perspective, or if it's a movie based on the perspective of the media, I don't know. But we're going to watch it on Sunday and hope to gain a little bit more insight on maybe some things that we're not hearing about in her book as to the things that happened. Okay. Chapter 36, Fawn. After leaving the apartment, I drove straight to the Heyman's house, my sanctuary in the storm. When I asked if I could stay for a while, they welcomed me without hesitation or interrogation. I caught a glimpse of concern in their eyes. They could sense that things with my family had taken a turn for the worse, but they knew better than to pry, offering instead the quiet comfort of their presence and the safety of their home. As I sat my bag down in the guest room, the knot in my chest loosened just a little, allowing me to take my first real breath since leaving my apartment. But Derek, for some reason, didn't seem to like that I was there. I hope you're not overstaying your welcome. Derek's text glowed on my screen. You don't have to be a burden. They're nice people, but everyone has their limits. His words lingered in my mind, poisonous and persistent. Suddenly, every kind gesture from the Haymans felt tainted. Were their smiles strained? Were their welcomes fully sincere? Did they think I was a parasite feeding off their generosity? I found myself analyzing every interaction, searching for signs of resentment or fatigue. The warmth of their home felt precarious, like a fragile bubble that could burst at any moment. I cornered Miss Heyman in the kitchen, my eyes wide and pleading. Are you sure it's okay for me to be here? I asked. I can leave if you want, or I can pay rent. Sherry, you're very, very welcome here. It's not a problem, she said, fussing around the sink. Are you absolutely positively sure? I asked. Honey, she called out to Mr. Heyman, who was puttering around in the garage. Can you come in here for a moment? I need you to tell Sherry something. Mr. Heyman ambled into the kitchen, his face creased with concern. Listen, I need you to tell Sherry that she's not a burden and then she's welcome here for as long as she needs. I think she needs to hear it from both of us. Mr. Heyman's face softened and he turned to me. Sherry, he said, you are a part of this family now, whether you like it or not. You're stuck with us. You hear me? And we wouldn't have it any other way. I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes, the lump rising in my throat. Is is this what this feels like? I thought, my heart swelling with a fierce, aching love. Is this what it's like to have people in your life who actually care about you? Oh God, I'm going to cry. That's so terrible. I'm glad that she understands what it's like to truly have people on her side. Everybody needs that. I can imagine like the relief of just feeling like, oh, thank God there are people that actually care about me and want to see me okay. Despite the Heyman's kindness, I couldn't shake off Derek's words. He kept texting me, each message a carefully crafted barb designed to sow doubt. I'm sure they're just being polite, he'd write. Or, people start to resent house guests after a while. Deep down, I knew his comments probably stemmed from jealousy. He couldn't stand the idea that I had found comfort and support outside of him. Yet, even recognizing his motives, I couldn't bring myself to confront him or ask him to stop. Instead, I'd simply respond with a non-committal agreement, swallowing my frustration. It seemed easier, safer to let him have his say than to disagree and risk provoking his anger. Sherry, have you ever heard of the fawn response? Dana, my therapist, asked. Fawn response? I asked, shaking my head. What is that? Well, we often talk about fight and flight and freeze as trauma responses, but there's a fourth. Fawn. It's when a person tries to please or appease their abusers to avoid conflict or further harm. Dana leaned forward, her eyes kind but intent. Fawning can look like always agreeing with others, even when you disagree inside. It's constantly trying to keep the peace, putting others' needs before your own, even when it hurts you. People who fawn often become hyper attuned to others' moods, trying to anticipate and meet their needs before they're even expressed. I felt my breath catch in my throat as she continued. In abusive situations, fawning can manifest as smiling and nodding while you're screaming inside. It's doing whatever it takes to keep an abuser happy because you've learned that's the safest way to survive. Does any of that sound familiar, Sherry? Oh my gosh, I whispered, my voice barely audible. That's that's me. That's basically what I've been doing my whole life. Dana nodded encouragingly. Allow me space to process this revelation. It's a common response to prolonged abuse or trauma. Recognizing it is the first step toward changing the pattern. I sat there, stunned, as years of memory suddenly clicked into place with this new understanding. This must be why I never fought back with Derek, I exclaimed, the words tumbling out of my mouth before I could stop them. I just fawn and I make sure he's happy because that feels safer. Sherry, who's Derek? I raised my hand to my mouth, my eyes filling with tears as I realized my slip. No, I wasn't ready to talk about this yet. Is he the friend that you mentioned a few sessions back, the older gentleman? I shook my head, unable to meet her gaze. Dana handed me a tissue. It's okay. Go at your own pace. I'm sure this is also very overwhelming, and you don't have to talk about it unless you want to. But understand this fawning pattern may help. I nodded, dabbing at my eyes. As the session came to a close, I felt a strange mix of vulnerability and relief. Derek's name had finally been spoken in this room, even if I wasn't ready to say more. But now I understood why I couldn't say no to him, why I never rebuked him or showed anger. It wasn't weakness, it was a pattern etched into my very being by years under Ruby's thumb. Some way, somehow, I'd have to figure out how to break it. This chapter she calls Showdown. They gave me all gall for my meat. Sorry, hold on. They gave me also gall for my meat, and in my thirst they gave me vinegar to drink. Psalm 69:21, King James. Ruby's vindictiveness was legendary, and I knew she wouldn't hesitate to pull the trigger if she felt like she had a point to prove. The signs were all there. She already stopped signing her texts with mom, opting instead for the cold, impersonal Ruby. I knew what this meant. I knew what was coming. Ruby always had to have the last word. She had to win. I better get ready for what was coming. She was going to cut me out, just like she had Kevin and the rest of the family. And then I remembered she had access to my bank account. All my money, every last penny I had scrimped and saved, was sitting in an account that Ruby could empty at any given moment. I have to get that money out, I decided. That night in early September, I set about transferring every cent into a new account, one that bore my name and my name alone. And as I hit the final confirm button, I flinched. Ruby was a master of retaliation. As soon as she realized what I'd done, she'd punish me. An email pinged in my inbox the next morning, a message from our family's insurance agent. Sherry, it read, your mother has asked me to remove you from the family's car insurance policy effective immediately. You will need to secure your own coverage. Please do not drive until you have done so. Indignation burned hot in my veins. Who just cuts off their own daughter's ability to drive without so much as a heads up? Then I realized that I had a bigger problem on my hands, the title to my car. It's still at the house. And if I want to get my own insurance, I need that damn piece of paper in my name. The thought of having to face Ruby, of having to beg and plead for what was rightfully mine, made my skin crawl. But I had no choice. Time to grovel. I typed out a message, my words carefully chosen and painfully polite. I brought our congregation president, Jim Nelson, into the text conversation as a form of emotional backup. I knew Ruby would be less likely to ignore the text if someone powerful was included. Mom, I'm going to get my own car insurance, and I would like the title of the car as proof of ownership. Is there any way I can get this from you? I hit send and waited. My heart pounded in my chest. And then, after what I felt like an eternity, her response came. Shari, this is just another example of your lying and manipulating, bringing President Jim Nelson into this text thread. You are just asking for the title of your own car, which I have no problem getting to you. You could have just asked me. You've been very active in deceiving and creating chaos, pain, and destruction and turmoil. My own daughter had turned on truth and me, and the outcome are devastating to your siblings. Shari, I am your mother. I am only guilty of teaching you truth. Truth is the only thing that matters in this life, and you have fought against it since you were little. It breaks my heart you are at war with God. The Lord has blessed you with a quick mind, and it is devastating to watch you use that mind to fight against the truth. I will give the title to Pam. Feel free to collect it from her. I texted Pam, my words carefully neutral and polite. How did one even begin a conversation like this? A negotiation with a gatekeeper? Hi, Pam. Ruby mentioned that she was leaving some documents with you for me to pick up. Is there a convenient time for me to come by and collect them? Thanks, Shari. Her response came quickly, setting a date and time the following week that I should come by. That was easy, I thought, feeling a little better. I can just swing by, grab my documents, and be done with this whole mess. But a couple of things happened before I was able to get my car back. The situation at home had escalated. With Kevin gone and Ruby increasingly absent, I felt a growing sense of dread about my younger siblings' welfare. The final straw came when a neighbor informed me that the children had been left alone for 5 days while Ruby was off doing God knows what with Jody. I was stunned. 5 days, no adult supervision, no one to make sure they were fed, safe, looked after. The thought of my younger siblings fending for themselves for nearly a week made my blood boil. In that moment, I knew I had to do something. Consequences be damned. I made a phone call to the Division of Child and Family Services requesting a welfare check on the children. The police went down to the house, knocked on the doors, and looked inside the windows. They reported back that the kids were there and apparently everyone was fine. I was relieved that they were okay, but frustrated at the lack of action. While there might not be specific laws against leaving minors alone, surely 5 days crossed some sort of line. My relief was short-lived somehow. Ruby had discovered that I was the one who called DCF, and now she was on the warpath. I don't know how she figured out, but she wanted my head on a stick. Now I found myself in an awkward position of having to face Pam to collect my car title, all while knowing about Ruby's fury, as if things weren't awkward enough already. I paced back and forth across the Haymans' living room, probably wearing a hole in their carpet as my brain went into overdrive, conjuring up all sorts of nightmare scenarios. What if Pam straight up refuses to give me the title? What if she tries to use it as a bargaining chip to force me back under Ruby's thumb? Panicking, I fired off a text to Pam, hoping and praying that Ruby had been too embarrassed to tell her what happened. Hey, Pam, I'm really anxious to get those documents. Would it be possible for you to just leave them in your mailbox for me to pick up? I'm kind of in a rush today. Thanks, Shari. Her response was swift and unequivocal. Absolutely not, Shari. Those are valuable legal documents, and I won't risk them being stolen or lost. You'll need to come to the house and collect them in person. See you at the appointed time and day, Pam. As if the situation wasn't stressful enough, a few days before I was supposed to go and pick up the documents, Reddit exploded. Word had gotten out that Kevin and Chad were no longer living at home, and the internet, with its insatiable appetite for our family drama, had latched on to this information. Rumors were spreading, theories were being formed on Reddit and other forums about what was going on, questioning my role in everything. In the face of this growing speculation, I felt compelled to make my position clear and posted on an Instagram story. This was what she posted on Instagram. I know that there are many rumors circulating online about my family. While it is true that I am not in contact with my immediate family and don't support the extreme beliefs of connections, please remember that this is my real family. Despite good intentions, speculating, rumors, and gossip do not help us. I'd like to ask for privacy for me and my family as we work through this very difficult situation. Please know that many are working on the situation, and I hope one day we can be whole again. Please respect my privacy as I work on my own healing as well. I knew that by posting this statement, I was effectively burning whatever flimsy bridge might have remained between me and Ruby. But something inside me had shifted, the need to stand up for what I believed in, to distance myself from Ruby and Jody and all they represented, had become stronger than my fear of any consequences. As I posted it, I felt a mix of terror and exhilaration. It was as if I jumped off a cliff, not knowing if there were any water or rocks below. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was being true to myself. Whatever came next, I would face it. Hey, Buffy. Hey, Shorty. My heart was racing as I approached Miss Heyman in the kitchen. The words felt heavy in my mouth, but I forced them out. Miss Heyman, I said, my voice small and shaky, I have to go pick up some documents from Pam today. Would you maybe come with me? I don't think I can do this alone, and I'm not supposed to drive without insurance. Miss Heyman's face softened, her eyes filling with a compassion I'd grown to rely on. Of course I'll come with you, Sherry. We'll do this together. The drive to Pam's house was a blur. As we walked up to the front steps, each footfall felt like it was bringing me closer to some inevitable confrontation. My hand trembled as I knocked on the door. When it swung open, my worst fears were confirmed. There stood Pam, her face pinched with disapproval, but it was the figure behind her that made my blood run cold. Ruby, my mother, stood tall and regal, my documents clutched in her hand like a hostage. It was an ambush. Hello, Sherry, Ruby said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I swallowed hard, my mouth suddenly dry as sandpaper. Can I have my papers, please? As I asked, holding out my hand, willing it not to shake. Ruby's eyes narrowed. Not so fast. I'm not giving you the title until you listen to what I have to say. Come inside. Let's have a chat. In that moment, I felt a surge of strength I didn't know I possessed. No, I said, my voice trembling but clear. I'm not coming inside. If you want to talk, we can do it out here. And so there we stood, the four of us on Pam's front porch, locked in a bizarre standoff. Ruby clutching my documents like a weapon, Pam hovering like a shadow, Miss Heyman calm and unflappable behind me, a silent pillar of support, and me shaking like a leaf but refusing to back down. Ruby's face contorted with anger and hurt. I can't believe you called the police on me, she began, her voice rising. After everything I've done for you, all the sacrifices I've made, how could you betray me like that, Sherry? How could you be so selfish? I could feel Miss Heyman's steady presence behind me, reminding me that I wasn't alone, that I had support beyond the toxic web of my family. Selfish, I repeated, finding strength in my voice. I was worried about the kids. They were alone for 5 days, Mom. 5 days. They're fine, Ruby snapped. They're old enough to take care of themselves. This is about you, Shari, your jealousy, your need for attention. I felt a bubble of hysteric laughter rise in my throat. How could she twist this around, make it about me? But then, wasn't that always her way? This isn't about me, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. It's about the safety of my siblings. It's about doing what's right. Ruby's eyes flashed dangerously. What's right? You have no idea what's right. You're just a child playing at being an adult. Your siblings are terrified of you now for calling the police on them. Ruby's face hardened, her lips twisting into a sneer. One day, Shari, you'll come crawling back to me, begging for my forgiveness, and it'll all be hard for me to give it to you, but I'll be gracious. Forgiveness for what, Mom? You're telling lies about me everywhere, and they're spreading like dandelion seeds across the field. The weeds are all going to pop up, and one day you'll have to go back and cut them all down and come apologizing to me. I'm not going to apologize for telling the truth, I said, my voice quiet but firm. How dare you contact Chad and Kevin behind my back, she hissed, spittle flying from her lips. They're my family too. You don't get to dictate who I can and cannot talk to. I could feel my anger rising hot and fierce in my chest. Ruby let out a harsh, mirthless smile. Family, please. You've made it abundantly clear that you want nothing to do with this family. You're a traitor, Shari, a Judas in our midst. I could feel the tears streaming down my face, hot and sticky on my cheeks. You've always hated me, she whispered. Ever since you were 5 years old, I could see it in your eyes, the way you looked at me, the way you judged me. You never appreciated anything I've ever done, all the sacrifices I've made. That's not true, I choked. I never hated you, Mom. I was scared of you. Ruby's shook her head. You're like the Romans in the Bible, she said, feeding me vinegar when I'm dying of thirst, crucifying me for your own selfish gains. I heard Miss Heyman mutter something underneath her breath, something that sounded suspiciously like, oh, for goodness sake. But I was too focused on Ruby to pay much attention. I could feel a panic coming on, my chest tightening and my vision starting to blur. Ruby wasn't finished. When you're ready to apologize, really apologize, then maybe we can be a family again, she said to me. But until then, don't contact me, Kevin, Chad, or anyone else in our family because you won't get a response. Miss Heyman stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. Ruby, I think it's time for you to give Shari her documents and let us be on our way. For a moment, I thought Ruby might argue, might lash out with another barrage, but something in Miss Heyman's eyes, in the set of her jaw, must have given her pause. Ruby thrust the papers into my hands, her fingers brushing against mine. Here, she said, her voice cold and distant. I clutched the documents in my chest. One last thing, Ruby. I saw your Instagram story. Can you promise not to talk about this on social media anymore? I waited until I had the papers safely in my bag before I responded, my voice shaking but clear. No, I said. And that was the last interaction I ever had with my mother. Miss Heyman guided me back to the car, her arm wrapped securely around my waist as if she could sense the weakness in my legs. As I collapsed into the passenger seat, the dam finally broke. My whole body shook, and I began gasping for air. Miss Heyman didn't say a word, just put the car in gear and drove, her hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. The houses and trees and mailbox blurred together in a haze. I was excommunicated, disowned. It was a pain beyond words, a loss so profound that it felt like physical amputation, like a part of my very soul had been ripped away. Miss Heyman's hand found mine across the center console, warm and reassuring. She didn't try to fill the silence with platitudes or empty reassurances, didn't try to minimize the enormity of what just happened. She just held my hand, a silent promise that she would be there. Her fingers wound tight around mine. Whew! Mm. It was like I was literally on the porch with them. That's all I'm going to say. That was so like emotionally tantalizing that you could you could literally like we were there. Did you feel like you were there on the porch while all of this was happening? That was so intense. So intense. That poor girl has gone through so much with her mother. And as I listened to her sharing all of this, thank you. As I listened to her sharing all of this, it is such a stark, like, reminder of all the times when something like this happened with me and my own mom. She is so brave, like, so courageous, so strong, and it's almost like it was a blessing that she was just a couple of years away from moving out whenever the true abuse started to happen with Jody, because she was able to get out of the house, and getting out of the house was so pivotal in her being able to see what was happening. It was like, so I feel like she knew what was going on when she was living in the home. I don't think she understood the magnitude of the abuse that her and her family were enduring, the amount of psychological abuse that was happening until she actually left the house. But she is so blessed that she left to go to college and was able to get out there on her own to start learning how to live life independently of her abusive family. It is. It's hard to accept that it's real when you're right in the middle of it. There are so many situations in my life that are very similar to that. And she was only what, 19 when all this happened. If you're thinking sophomore in college, like, she's so young. And to feel in totally like cut off from everything you know at such a very young age, like, I can't imagine that feeling, to not have any support aside from some creepy dude that's also trying to abuse you in a different way. And the fawning, you're right, Holly, like the fawning, it was such a response because she had been so conditioned to just not make waves, not make any waves, just allow whatever is happening to happen because it'll at least be over. And if you don't make any waves, then you won't get hurt anymore. I can't wait to hear like what happens with Derek, because he was kind of like a lifeline for her. But then once the Haymans came in and kind of took over everything, it almost felt like he was upset, jealous, angry that she had somebody else that she could rely on aside from him, because I feel like he had ulterior motives. Yes, he gets on my nerves. He was having severe ulterior motives and like wanting to manipulate her further so that he could abuse her even further. Like he wasn't looking out for her best interest. Like I feel like the Haymans were. It feels like the Haymans were actually looking out for what was best for her, not trying to manipulate her so that they could abuse her even further, which that's what I think that fucker was trying to do, Derek. I think he was trying to manipulate her so he could abuse her further. What a dick. Like, what a fucking prick. Anyway, I'm glad that she understands what it's like to have someone that you can lean on, someone that is on your side, someone that cares about you and wants to see you doing well and wants to see you, grow and mature and overcome the trauma that you've experienced in your life. She really needed somebody in her life that was going to be there for her 100%. And I'm so glad that they helped her. Yeah, she recognized it young. I don't think that I recognized what was going on as young as she did. At 5 years old, she was already recognizing that there were things going on that didn't seem normal. I don't think I recognized what was going on with my mother until I was maybe 12. And at that point, I still don't know if I would have labeled it abuse, like I don't know if I would have labeled it abuse at that point. The last part of this book is going to be like, I can't even imagine how the courage that is going to be in the rest of this book, because the last part is called Fall of the Damned. And here are some of the names of the chapters, just so you can get an idea of what we're coming up against. The Echo Chamber, Abandoned by Justice, Mommy's Mausoleum, True Crimes, The House of My Mother, Rings of Remembrance, Evidence in Plain Sight, Home Sweet Home, Judgment Day, Ruby's Journal, It Ends Here, 7 Passengers. Like, there is a lot more information in this book. And I just want to say that she is so young and so mature and so like emotionally intelligent. And I think that because she had ADHD, that a lot of people with ADHD and a little bit of autism have a justice sensitivity complex like I do. I have a justice sensitivity complex. So when I see that things are happening that shouldn't be happening, I feel like it's my right to go in and make it right, to get justice for the people that are being wronged. And I feel like she also had that. Yes, we'd like to invite Ruby to exit the family. Exactly. Exactly. You guys, I was crying because I felt the true weight of the words that she was saying, like that she finally had someone that actually cared about her. It's wild. It's wild how deep those words feel, especially when you've never had anyone to care about you. I'm 43 and I still don't know what that looks like. Like, so for her to get it and to finally feel that security and that love and that support, like, She so deserves that. We all do. And it's frustrating, like when you don't get it from the people that are supposed to love you the most, your parents. And they're the ones that are, causing you the most harm and emotional trauma and mental anguish. Like, I'm so glad that you have that. It's amazing when you have it, and everyone deserves it. Everyone deserves to be loved and feel support. And she definitely needed it at that time. Like, she needed somebody to come in and just give her unconditional love so that she didn't fall prey to even more predators. Because I could see this being a totally different story if she had not had a safe family to find security in, like she could have ended up being, manipulated and abused by even more men than the one than Derek, so it seemed like even though she struggled a lot, everything happened in the way that it needed to happen for her. And she's got a lifetime of living to do. And I know that she also has a lifetime of like trauma therapy that she's going to have to go through. But at least she's able to start at 18 as an adult. At least she's not starting this trauma therapy at age 35, and she's got, all these other situations that have created more abusive patterns and abusive people in her life. She's helping so many people by sharing her story. Like, this is so intense, but it's also so brave of her to share in the way that she's sharing. She really stripped down the entire story, starting from beginning to end. Like, it's a cohesive story that you're almost like standing right there with her. It's like we're holding hands and we're walking through the story with her while we're reading this book. This book is raw, it's emotional, it's descriptive, and it's hopeful. It's hopeful. It's powerful, it's insightful, it's emotional. It's a lot of things, and I'm really proud that we're all sitting here and reading it together. I know that we all have our own trauma in our own lives. Thank you, Holly. We all have our own trauma in our own lives, and we can all relate to this story in a different way. And I think that that's what's so beautiful about the story, is that we all can relate to it slightly different. Um I need to go. I need to blow my nose and take a shower. Thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out with me while we finished chapter or part 4 of the book. As I was already saying, what we're going to do on Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is we are going to watch the book Mormon Mom Gone Wrong, the Ruby Franke story. I'm going to pay for it on Amazon Prime since I can't watch it on Lifetime. I think that's the movie that you were talking about, right, Buffy? Is it this? Or is it called Ruby Franke? Yes, I am definitely connecting with this book more than I've connected with any other books about narcissism. But if I have to be honest, most of the other books that I've read about narcissism aren't necessarily story. Yes. Okay. We're going to watch it on Sunday, Buffy, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Most of the other books that I have read on narcissism aren't actual stories like this. You know what I mean? They're not biographies about somebody enduring narcissistic abuse. And I think that that's why I resonate with it so much, because I've lived this story for, 40 years. Different people, different abuse, different situations, but I've lived her story 4 times. So, we all, like I said, we all experience different things differently, and nobody can compare one person's, life story to another person's life story, because we're all going at different paths. Um, and yeah, I am connected to this book in a real way. I might even reach out to her. That's how connected I am to this book. We'll see. I definitely don't want to come off as like some weird, creepy person. But I do think that it's important for her to know that she is helping people with the release of this book. And we're all very proud and honored to be able to read her story, connect with her story, and learn and grow from the story. I love you guys so much. Thank you for coming. Today is Friday. We're going to skip tomorrow night. I'm not going to go live tomorrow night because I need one day off just so that I can recoup. I get a little overwhelmed with a lot of social interaction. So sometimes I just need like a day to unwind. And since we're going to go live on Sunday to watch the movie, I'm going to take a break tomorrow and not go live. So I'm going to skip Saturday, and then I'll see you guys back on Sunday. I will go ahead and thank you, Beatnik. I will go ahead and post a little update so everyone knows to come back Sunday night so we can watch the movie all together. Y'all have a wonderful evening. Enjoy your Saturday, and I will see you Sunday. Thank you. You too, Holly. Bye, Buffy. Bye, Shorty. Bye, Helen Wheels.